Mark this down on the bingo card of things I didn't expect to see in 2022. Let's go over to the Boston Bruins and talk about what's been going on with that organization as of late. You had yourselves the firing of Bruce Cassidy, a pretty interesting move and one that I personally don't understand all too much. I didn't make a video about it because I feel like I needed to get educated on that topic. Thus, I just referred to a lot of the other hockey YouTubers that made videos about the Cassidy firing itself. But Cassidy aside, there are more things to talk about with the Boston Bruins. The big topic that we had been discussing over the past few months had been Patrice Bergeron, the recent 5-time Selke winner and captain of the team. Because his contract is up and he will be a UFA next season, there has been ever so growing speculation as to whether or not he's going to retire. Is he going to stay in Boston? He's no longer going to be playing for the coach that allowed him to play his game in Bruce Cassidy should he return. So is there really as much of an intention now to stick around in Boston? Who really knows? I certainly don't. But today's video is going over a different player on this team. The reason we're talking about this is because of an Athletic article published by Fluto Shinzawa yesterday. The player we're discussing is David Pastrnak. He's one of the best NHL goal scorers today. He had 48 goals back in 2019-20 in a three-way tie for the Maurice Richard Trophy. And he's a guy who last season had 77 points in 72 games. Now, he has had better seasons before. His 95-point campaign in 1920 sticks out to me, but David Pastrnak, as a 26-year-old right-handed sniper who plays at 6 feet 194, is making $6.6 million till the end of next year. Now, it doesn't take a genius to acknowledge that for a guy making $6.6 million a year, scoring at a 100-point pace is absolutely phenomenal. Even though he didn't do that this season or last season, he is still that caliber of a player where he is elite, he is a first-liner, he is a bona fide 30-goal guy, and, I mean, he's going to need a contract extension for 2023 and beyond, in the smack-dab middle of his prime. Now, when his contract does expire, he will be a UFA, so there is a lot of bargaining power that Pastrnak is going to have heading into his final year. However, this Fluto Shinzawa article brings up a completely different kind of discussion that we can be having for Pastrnak instead. Here is the piece: a David Pastrnak trade and full rebuild loom as a possible next step for the Boston Bruins. Hold up, what the heck? Are they really gonna go out there and just start the rebuild now that Patrice Bergeron's future is up in the air and they fired Bruce Cassidy? A David Pastrnak trade, are you saying? This is an excerpt from the article that was published on the Twitter from Ian McLaren. I want to go out there and read this. After the 2019-20 season, Torrey Krug's contract was expiring with the Bruins. However, Don Sweeney, the GM, did not stand in the way of the defenseman's exit to St. Louis. He became a free agent and he ended up leaving. A year later, David Krejci's deal was up too. Upon the season's end, Krejci considered relocating to his family in Czechia. Sweeney did not make it worth the center's while to change his mind. He also became a free agent and he also left. In both cases, David Pastrnak was watching. Number 88 had seen how Don had treated his two best friends, a source close to Pastrnak wrote to The Athletic in a text. There is no chance he comes back with Sweens as the GM. Oh my gosh. Okay, so now there's a growing sentiment that David Pastrnak, according to this Athletic source, would prefer to not play hockey under Don Sweeney, therefore he would likely go out there and request a trade to some other team elsewhere. Now, the rest of the article talks about other Boston Bruins things that have been going on. It talks about how the Bruins do want to re-sign Pastrnak, because of course they do. I mean, it's David freaking Pastrnak, and this guy's one of the best young goal scorers in the entire National Hockey League, so why the heck would you want to trade this guy? And we had Elliot Friedman also come on to the Jeff Merrick show saying a similar thing, that, hey, the Boston Bruins, even though there might be some rumors that are popping around saying that they would be interested or whatever in trading this guy, somebody told him this morning to not automatically assume Boston will rebuild. The person that told Friedman this says the Bruins feel if they can tread water to start the season, they will be fine at the end with everyone gradually coming back. However, of course, Bergeron coming back is a key. If he can come back and help the Bruins survive the start of the season until everybody else gets back, because you have some other players like McAvoy, etc., who are not going to be able to start the season, that's going to be your primary focus, I guess. He also said, I know there's been some rumblings today that they're going to try to trade Pastrnak. I don't believe that's the case, at least not initially. I believe their intention is to sign him. And for whatever reason, if they get the impression they can't sign him, then I think that may change, but the initial sense I'm getting is that their goal is to sign him. Which shouldn't be a surprise. I mean, it says even in the article on The Athletic that the Bruins want to sign him. But the team wanting to sign this guy and the player not wanting to re-sign on the same team, heck, maybe even the player not wanting to play under the same GM, those are two different things. From Torrey Krug to David Krejci, potentially, Bruce Cassidy, and now you have Patrice Bergeron as well on the crosshairs. If you were trying to make a hit piece saying, okay, this is why players don't want to play in the Bruins, this is why David Pastrnak would potentially not want to be here anymore, it makes sense. It's just, we're going to have to wait and see if that's actually what happens, because an unnamed source talking over to The Athletic saying that Pastrnak would indeed not want to play for this team anymore if Sweeney was the GM is a really big deal. So all of a sudden now the conversation opens up as to what exactly is going to happen here. If the Boston Bruins decide to trade David Pastrnak away, firstly, what is the price for this guy? Secondly, where the heck do the Bruins go from here? I mean, the article, of course, it's titled, Pastrnak Trade and a Full Rebuild loom as a possible next step for the Bruins. A full rebuild implies all of your big-name guys getting traded off the team, stocking up on your prospect cupboard and making sure you've got a ton of draft capital in the next few years. Maybe that's a McAvoy trade, maybe that's a Marchand trade, maybe that's another Taylor Hall trade, who really knows if that's going to happen. And then, of course, you have the guy up top, David Pastrnak. And I think it goes without saying, but a Patrice Bergeron retirement would likely have to be a prerequisite to this entire thing happening. If Bergeron says, okay, I'm coming back, I'm going to play another year, I want to win another Selke because I'm definitely good enough to go out there and do that. If Bergeron says that, there is no way you can trade away Pastrnak or start your full-on rebuild then, right? You kind of have to make sure that Bergeron is already gone before you treat that guy and his captaincy with the pains of a rebuild, because it's a painful process, especially for a Bruins team that would really need to be starting from scratch. Prospects and development, that's not really been the Bruins' forte over the past few years. It's been like that for a while, so who really knows how the Bruins are going to go out there and navigate through a rebuild scenario. They were in the Stanley Cup Finals as early as 3 years ago, so this would be an immediate shift. It just really depends on Bergeron, in my opinion, and of course, if David Pastrnak really is as unhappy as this article implies that he is, we might be able to see something like that manifest a little bit sooner, but who really knows? So, to end off this video, I also wanted to talk about what exactly a trade could look like, because if you're talking about Pastrnak and his profile as a hockey player, I kind of view him in a similar light as I do JT Miller, mostly because these two guys are both top-of-the-line point producers that are going to be UFAs in 2023. Miller is cheaper, but he is older. Pastrnak is a better goal scorer, but he also is a little bit more expensive. So there is a tad difference or two when it comes to both of these guys, but I think they kind of balance each other out to make it so that the conversation is somewhat similar between trading away a Pastrnak and trading away a Miller. It's just Pastrnak also has that label attached to him of being one of these younger studs, the best player in 2014, potentially, and a guy who has a Maurice Richard Rocket trophy to his name. So who knows? If it's a first-round pick, 2 first-round picks, a top prospect, and a first-round pick, plus a roster player in return that's young, that can develop into something into the future. It's kind of difficult to say that because David Pastrnak himself is only 26, turning 27 in July, so this is a very valuable piece. Extraordinarily valuable, and heck, if the Bruins want to go out there and say, okay, we can go the Vancouver route and say 50% salary retained, you can get David Pastrnak at only $3.3 million a year. How about that? The value goes up even more. Pastrnak himself also has some trade protection. He's got a modified no-trade clause and a no-move clause this upcoming season, so he's going to have control over wherever it is that he goes if he eventually does request a trade. But at the end of the day, this is just going to be really interesting to pay attention to. We're going to be keeping up on the articles, talking about the radio hits, etc., on the updates of this player and the situation, because, I didn't realize that Torrey Krug and David Krejci's departures from the team would apparently influence things this much, I guess we're all finding out together because of this Athletic article, but either way, talk to me in the comments all your thoughts about David Pastrnak and the idea of a trade. I hope you enjoyed this video. And bye.